Huh? Narrative essay. What should I do? How do I even start? Huh? What's this? Reading and writing skills. Why not?
Oh, hi there! Looks like you need help starting that narrative essay, huh? Well, you came to the right place. Allow me to navigate you through the fascinating world of the narrative essay. I am Teacher Kit, and I will be your virtual teacher for reading and writing. Today, you will learn how to plan and write your narrative essay in 5 easy steps. You will choose a story, create a thesis statement, and create an outline. You will also learn how to use transitions in writing your essay. So, let's get started. Follow me. Hi again. Welcome to Storytelling Live. I know I said I'll help you with your narrative essay, right? So why are we talking about storytelling? Well, narration is a writing pattern used to tell a story. Narration is simply storytelling. And stories are everywhere. Think of an article on a newspaper, or the latest episode of that Korean drama you binge-watched last week. What about the recent post from your friend about collecting plants? Or maybe a rumor your best friend texted you about that bargain shirt. These are all stories, narratives. According to an old Native American proverb, those who tell stories rule the world. This proverb means that stories are powerful and influential means of expression. Stories, or narratives, connect us humans and shape our ideas, beliefs, and relationships. It shapes who we are as individuals, as well as the society we live in. So, are you ready to write your own story? Great! Let us begin with Step 1. Choose your story. To get you started with your narrative essay, the first step is to choose a story. Not just any story, choose a story that is compelling. Compelling means convincing, captivating, or having the ability to hold a reader's attention. Do you know what stories are the most compelling? Your stories. The most compelling stories are personal. They come from your own experiences, from the most ordinary moments to moments of extreme emotion with you, the author, as the main character in the story, or what we call the protagonist. So, choose a story that you are personally passionate or really care about. This will make your story authentic. Authentic is when a story is believable, relatable, and real to your readers. Readers will be able to connect more to you as an author when you are authentic in your storytelling. Trust me, you'll be more invested in your story and will write better and easier. Ideas also flow naturally because you actually like what you're writing. Now, if you pick a story that you don't care about, you won't be able to write as much or as better. The tendency is you'll have a hard time writing to the point that it would feel like a chore. In the end, you'll have a forced and boring story. So, start thinking of a story, an experience, or a memory that you particularly like or care strongly about. Remember, choose a compelling story. Checkpoint! Tell a story of how you stopped or stood up to a bully. How were you helpful during the lockdown? Tell us how you learned a new hobby during the pandemic. How was your first day of school in the new normal? Or tell a story of a teacher that has influenced you for good. These are just ideas. Feel free to choose a story you like. Be creative in your title. So go ahead, write down your title. Step 2, create a thesis statement. Welcome to my FB Live. You have chosen a story and also picked a title. What's next? Well, it's now time to write your thesis statement. I know, a thesis statement seems scary. Well, they're actually not. A thesis statement is a sentence that states your point of view or argument about a certain topic. Just like any plain sentence, a thesis statement has a subject and a predicate. The subject is the topic that you will be exploring in your essay. The predicate is your argument, claim, or point of view about the subject. In the case of a narrative essay, the subject is the story you chose, and the predicate is the significance, lesson, or realization you have about the story you chose. Remember this formula. Thesis statement equals to a subject, which is the story, plus predicate, which is the significance, lesson, or realization you have about the story. For example, I want to tell the story of when I represented my school in an impromptu speech contest. Let's now use our thesis formula. My subject would be, I represented my school in an impromptu speech contest. For the predicate, I will ask myself, how is this experience of me speaking for the first time important? What did I learn from this experience? Well, this experience taught me that preparation inspires confidence. Boom! I have a thesis statement. Representing my school in an impromptu speech contest taught me that preparation inspires confidence. Remember step 2. Create a thesis statement by combining the subject, which is the story you chose, and the predicate, which is the significance, lesson, or realization you have about your story. Checkpoint! It's now your turn to write your own thesis statement. Using the formula below, create a thesis statement by writing your story as a subject and your significance, lesson, or realization as your predicate. You may adjust your statement to make it more sensible. Go ahead and start writing. Step 3. Create an outline. So, you have chosen a story. You also have a thesis statement. What's next? Well, a story needs to have some kind of structure or organization to make it sensible or logical. This brings us to our next step, creating an outline. No one likes reading a story that is all over the place. What we are looking for is a story that readers can easily follow. An outline will help you organize the main points in your essay before writing your paragraphs. Think of an outline as a series of points on a map that leads to a destination. In the case of essays, these points contain 3 parts: the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. However, since we are writing a narrative essay, we will rename these parts based on the parts of a narrative arc. What is a narrative arc? The narrative arc refers to a story structure. It is composed of events that move the plot of a story from beginning to end. The narrative arc is often portrayed as a pyramid and has 3 parts: the beginning, the middle, and the end. Let's take a closer look at these 3 parts. First, the beginning. The beginning is the introduction. This paragraph will hook your readers into reading your story. The beginning introduces the setting, other characters, other useful information, and most importantly, your thesis statement. If I'm writing a story about me representing my school in an impromptu speech contest, I would begin my story in my house, the morning of the contest. I was reading a newspaper and an online article about possible topics for the speech. My outline would look something like this. First, I'll write down the title of my story. If this is your story, this will be the title you made earlier. Then, my beginning will have 4 subpoints: the setting, characters, other details, and the thesis statement. I'll fill in the story title with my title, The Impromptu Speech. For setting, I'll write down my room with newspapers and reading material stacked on my table. For characters, I'll put my mom and my coach. For other details, leaving the house to the contest venue. And for the thesis statement, I'll write, representing my school in an impromptu speech contest taught me that preparation inspires confidence. Now, we move on to the middle. The middle is the body. Unlike the beginning and the end, the middle could be more than 1 paragraph, depending on how long your story is. The middle is crucial, as it contains the drama and action in your story. This is where you introduce the conflict, as well as the events that lead to the climax. Since this is your story, the conflict is the problem that you, the protagonist, must face or overcome in order to reach a certain goal. The conflict is at the core of the story. It creates drama for the protagonist. Without a conflict, there would be no story. Conflicts could be man versus man. It could be something that you and your best friend had an argument about and then overcame. What's your problem, man? Conflicts could be man versus nature. It could be the rain on the day you plan a picnic. However, most conflicts are man versus himself. It could be the stage fear before a school performance, or you being distracted by video games, resulting to you not doing your homework. The climax of a story refers to the highest, most emotionally charged and action-packed point of the story. In subtler stories, the climax could be a point of realization, or what we call an epiphany. Here is an example of a conflict leading to the climax of a story. In my story, the conflict is me being nervous in competing with other students and representing my school for the very first time. The climax, or the highest point of my story, is when I started my impromptu speech in front of the judges. In my outline for the middle, my subtopics are conflict, other actions, then climax. Let's fill in the subpoints. My conflict is that I was inferior to others and I was afraid I might let people down. Do I have any other actions leading to the climax? Well, when I started speaking, my body started trembling from nervousness. I'll put that in other actions leading to the climax subpoint. The next subpoint, climax, delivering my impromptu speech despite of fear. If you have more details you wish to add to help you remind of what to write in your middle paragraphs, you may add more subpoints. Next is the end. Your third paragraph is called the end or the conclusion. The end leads to what we call a resolution. The resolution is the events that follow the climax and ultimately resolves the conflict. This is also where you restate your thesis statement. If the climax is the highest point of the story, the end is the downhill slide to the finish line that provides a satisfying conclusion to the story. In this part, you may restate your thesis statement. For example, I would like to end my story by narrating what happened after the speech. My coach congratulated me and I was awarded a medal. In my outline, under end, there are 2 subpoints, the resolution and restate thesis statement. In your resolution, write down the events that lead towards the end. After the resolution, you may paraphrase your thesis statement. For my first action on the resolution, I would write my coach congratulated me. For my second action, I would write down I was awarded a medal. Then, for my restated thesis, I will write down me representing my school in an impromptu speech contest taught me that preparation inspires confidence. So, here is our completed outline based on the three parts of the narrative arc: the beginning, the middle, and the end, with all its subpoints. Each of these three parts will be developed into paragraphs. Remember, create an outline to guide you in your writing. Checkpoint! Let's get you started with your outline. On your paper, create a simple outline for your narrative essay using the format we discussed. Don't worry about getting too detailed. Do as much as you can on the given time, and you can do the rest afterwards. Here is the outline format for your reference. Work on your outline for a minute. Go! Step 4. Use transitions. A narrative needs to follow a chronological sequence of events. This means the events in your story should be written in order of when they happened. To help our readers understand the sequence of a story, we use signals called transition devices. Transitions could be a word or phrase that are usually found at the beginning of a sentence to indicate time and continuity in a story. The most common transition words are first, next, then, after, and suddenly. Transition phrases like in the end, a minute later, that night, meanwhile, by the time, and many more can also be found in narratives. Transitions are useful in connecting actions performed one after another. For example, let's take a look at the series of actions in a paragraph from my story. I walked to the podium. I stared at the judges. I felt my hands shaking. I looked at the audience in horror. I took a deep breath and started talking. Sounds a little off, right? Now, let's try adding some transitions in some of these sentences. Here it goes. First, I walked to the podium. Then, I stared at the judges. Suddenly, I felt my hands shaking. I looked at the audience in horror. Finally, I took a deep breath and started talking. Does this paragraph sound better? It does, right? Adding transitions made our story more connected and more coherent. Should I use transitions in every sentence? The answer is no. Use transitions strategically throughout your paragraphs. Overusing transitions will make your paragraph sound unnatural. Checkpoint! Get your pens and paper ready. It's time for an activity called What Happens Next? For this exercise, we will create a short narrative paragraph. I will give you the first sentence, then using transitions, you will continue the story. Remember to be creative and most importantly, have fun. Let's start! This is Kim, our protagonist. You are in charge of Kim's story today. In your paper, write down what you want Kim to do today by filling up the blanks with sentences while using transitions. Kim decided to clean the house today. First, he washed his family's 2-day-old laundry. Now, it's your turn to fill up what Kim did on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th blanks. Take about a minute to fill in the blanks. Go! So far, we have chosen a compelling story that you truly care about. We also created a thesis statement that states the significance of your story. We also created an outline to guide your story, and we learned how to use transitions. We are now ready to write your paragraphs. This brings us to our last step. Step 5, write your story. We now have all the tools we need to get started in writing a compelling narrative essay. The last step is to use the outline you created and write your paragraphs. Tell your story as it is. Make sure that you include as much detail and description as you can to allow your readers to experience the story fully. Perhaps the most important thing to remember in this step is to have fun. Today, we have learned the 5 steps in writing a narrative essay. We learned to choose a story, create a thesis statement, create an outline, use transitions, and then use all of those tools to ultimately write our story. I hope you learned something useful today. Thanks for watching. This is Teacher Kit, reminding you to keep reading because a reader is a leader. Keep writing and you can change the world. Keep being awesome and tune in next time to Reading and Writing Skills.